Hey guys, Dan here with Battlefield Curator, and Ian at Forgotten Weapons put out a video called Investing in Guns. It's a bad idea. Wait. So let's watch this video together and I'll give you my thoughts and from my experience and my knowledge. And let's see what Ian has to say.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and you've probably heard people talk about what a great investment guns are. And I want to talk about that idea today because, well, let's just start off, be really clear. I don't think guns are that great of an investment. I think they're kind of a misguided investment. If you want to actually build wealth, which is the idea of investing, you want something where your money is actually going to do work for you and build real value. Buying a bunch of guns, what you're doing is hoping, assuming, guessing that people are going to want those guns fundamentally more in a few years than they do now, because the prices are always going to be going up with inflation. That's what we see with gun prices always going up. But if the gun doesn't actually become fundamentally more valuable to people, it'll go up with inflation at the same rate that everything else does. And in fact, if we look at the trend in firearms prices, just as an overall very general thing from the 1950s, it hasn't changed much. Some stuff's gone up a little bit in price. Some stuff's actually come down. Ammunition is cheaper today. Even today, it's cheaper than it was in the 50s or 60s. But fundamentally, gun values just track with inflation. So I think they're a really good store of value. You can, if you buy good collectible guns, you're not going to lose money in the long term, but you're not really going to gain any money in the long term either.
All right, so what he's saying here is that there's a misconception where people are looking at firearms as a solid investment class. And I think he's right on this one. He's going along the lines of, hey, what happens if there's like no demand in these weapons? Or what happens if the demand goes down? Or because people are pretty much looking at, oh, the gun values have gone up over time. But you got to look at like which guns, right? Like if you look at Carcanos, I mean, Carcanos really haven't done too much. Just now they've actually started, doing a lot better. But for the longest time, there was, especially after the JFK, Carcanos really weren't that prized among collectors. So what he's saying is you just never know, and you're kind of just if you just buy a bunch of guns, you're just hoping that they go up in value. You're hoping that there's going to be a demand for them. You're hoping that that you might be able to retire off of them. So let's see what else he has to say here.
Do that. Look at something like businesses, stock market investing, that sort of thing. Now, I'm certainly not a stock market expert, and that's not even close to the subject of today's video. Well, let's say that even having gone through that, you still want to try and invest in guns to maximize value.
All right, so he mentioned stock market investing. He mentioned businesses. So like you can start a business or you can invest in a business, and then, you put your money into a business, then hoping that, hey, it goes up in value. Well, if you look at the economy and how business works, it's actually one of the best investments to invest into solid businesses. Warren Buffett made his wealth off of investing in businesses and buying businesses. And he ran businesses, and he's in his 80s and he still runs businesses. So what he's saying here is that there are better choices for investment wheels than collecting guns. I don't disagree with that. So when you look at like a class of collectibles, if I were to put them into a tier, I would say you have your stock market investing, you have your real estate investing, you have your businesses, so you can either start a business and put your grind into it, providing products and services to consumers, and grow that business over time and have wealth for yourself when you retire. Those three, I think, are the top ones. And yeah, a lot of businesses fail, so there's always that aspect. But it's, for the most part, the American economy, and in Warren Buffett's lifespan, he's seen how well the American economy has done with with all these different businesses that are listed on the public stock exchange. So he invested in these businesses, and over time he's done very well for himself. So those three tiers, and then you have other alternative assets. You have other commodities. You can invest in like wood. You can invest in gold, precious metals, Bitcoin. Bitcoin's actually going up, or like cryptocurrencies are really getting up there. Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think, are like one of the top tier ones. And then below that, somewhere in the middle there, you've got collectibles, right, as an alternative asset. So they're really more or less, he's saying that they're a store of wealth. Guns can be a store of wealth and not an actual investment like stock market investing, real estate investing, and businesses. And there's better investments than just collecting guns solely. So he's saying, look at those options. And if you would like to look at those options, I'm going to put a little shameless plug into the comment section in the description. So check the description, sign up for Webull. You get some free stocks, I get some free stocks. It helps us both. Also, going along with this, I did a little mathematical chart about a couple years ago, and I said, what if I invested in Coca-Cola back in the 1960s? What if I invested in a bunch of M1 Garands? What would the values of those be? Well, I tracked it back, and going back to those values, so Coca-Cola back then was trading, very cheaply compared to today's money. So I said, okay, so if I invested in Coca-Cola, which it was, so right now we're looking at Coca-Cola being stock split a bunch of times with dividends. You gotta remember that they also pay dividends. And then you gotta be looking at the investment piece of guns, where you're probably not gonna get dividends, but you're gonna be paying money to probably shoot the guns and enjoy it while you own it. So the M1 Garand went up quite a few hundred percentages. Coca-Cola went up in value quite a few thousands. So what actually would have made you money more over the long run? Coca-Cola stock, by far. So there's an example of why he's saying that there are better investments than gun investments. Now, you don't have to go invest in Coca-Cola. There are a lot of other up-and-coming businesses that if you are a little bit forward-seeing, you can kind of guess what the future is going to hold. You can say, hey, we're looking at all these companies that have like started in technology, right? Technology's brand new, I mean, there's so much new technology like every day. So that's a good idea.
As opposed to investing in guns because you like them and you're interested in them, which I think is a bit healthier. But certainly, even if it's you're trying to build a collection of guns that you are interested in, there are a number of things that you should pay attention to if you want to have them go up in value as much as possible. So first off, you need knowledge. It's no good to spend money on something that turns out to be fake, for example, or to have someone intimate that a gun is particularly rare and unusual when it's actually not. The only way to effectively do that is to have knowledge, to learn the specifics of the subject matter that you're trying to collect. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is you kind of need to specialize. And the more specialized knowledge you have about a specific type of firearm, the better off you'll be to be able to find those things that are truly underappreciated, things where the seller doesn't recognize what they are, or things where you can recognize that there's an imbalance in the market that will probably be corrected at some point. A good example of one that hasn't really worked itself out yet are Nambu pistols. We've got the Type 14s and the Type 94s. 14s, by the way, look like Lugers, sort of. The 94s just kind of look ugly. And they're worth more or less the same. Like, the prices on them are pretty much the same. But what people apparently haven't really caught on to is there are a lot more Type 14s manufactured than there were 94s. The 94 ought to be an intrinsically significantly more valuable gun than the 14. And at some point, that's probably going to come out. And when it does, Type 94 prices are going to go up. relative to Type 14s. So being able to recognize imbalances like that in the market is a great way to get things for, get a better deal on something if you're willing to hold it for the long term.
All right, so what he's saying here is you need knowledge. So you need to know what you're investing in, and this goes for any kind of investment, whether it be stocks, whether it be real estate, whether it be investing in a business. I mean, if you're going to collect guns, you not only need to know what collectibles, what is collectible, what the collectible gun is, what it's about, its history behind it, how it was used, the values, past and present, and maybe you could look into the the future values. I mean, so essentially, you just don't go blindly buying a bunch of guns and think, hey, these are going to go up in value, because yeah, that's probably not going to work out in the long run. Even in the short term, you can get burned real bad because you can go buy some of these guns at an extremely ridiculous price, and you think that you just bought an investment. Like if you overpaid for a Mosin Nagant, you paid $1,200 for your 9130 run of the mill. I mean, that's just foolish. There are still places that you can get a standard run of the mill M9130 for around $500. So you need to know which places to find these. You need to like search around. You need to have knowledge on the pricing aspect. You need to have knowledge on the history. You need to have knowledge about the weapon itself, how it was used, the numbers that were built. You should also look into, how they get imported into the States. So like those Russian rifles might be a little difficult to import because they're made in Russia. And, if Russia's still got a whole big stockpile right now, you can't get them imported directly from Russia. They have to be stored in a neutral country for over 20 years. And then and then another company has to go talk to those guys and try to purchase them off to bring it into the state, to import them into the States. So essentially, yeah, you need to read some books, you need to watch some YouTube videos, you need to look at some forums, you need to get some experience from other people that have collected them, and also do some research on ammo as well. I mean, he talked about ammo in the beginning there. So there's a lot of things you need to be doing, a lot of time and effort to put into before, you actually just blindly spend money on some guns.
2, quality. There are people who like every different kind of firearm, from stuff that just looks like it was dragged under a truck to things that look like they're brand new out of the factory. I personally fall in the middle. I don't actually really like having guns that are totally pristine. I prefer something that shows a bit of wear. But those guns never grow in value or grow in demand the way that really nice pristine ones do. In general, if you want to maximize price increase over time, your best bet is focusing on the highest quality possible examples. And part of the reason for that is those are always the ones that are going to be worth the most. But it also means if the market slows down, if more of these guns become available, because stuff is getting imported all the time, and it's really hard to predict what's going to be coming onto the market next. The high quality examples are always going to be the ones that are sold, that are easiest to sell.
So what he's saying is focus on quality here. Look at some of the better aspects of firearms. If you're going to get a gun for collectible purposes, don't get something that's shot out, that's rusty, that that has patina. The better collectibles, according to Ian, are going to be ones that are in pristine or excellent or very fine condition, and those are the ones that do better at auction over time, and especially if they're well kept like that over a longer period of time, they're going to do very well.
We'll get less interested in Mosin Nagants, for example. Let's say you had some great Mosin Nagants that you bought in the 80s, before the fall of generally the Warsaw Pact, when there weren't a lot of Mosin Nagants necessarily around. If you had some kind of junkers, their value basically went through the floor when the market got flooded with Mosin Nagants. But if you had something really nice, its value probably still went down because the quantity, the supply of Mosins in general went way up. But if you had something really nice, it was going to survive and hold its value better than the ones that weren't in such good condition. And that always applies. You can see it in auction prices, like especially with machine guns. As the quality increases, the value increases sort of exponentially. The difference between a 95 and a 98 and the 99 and 100% totally mint gun gets really pretty substantial. And so if you're focused on maintaining value, look for the higher end of quality. That's going to be your better place.
All right, so yeah, yet again, just reiterating, if you're gonna get a firearm for collectible purposes, get something that's very good quality, very good condition already as is. It's there's no mechanical issues. It's not been bubbified. It's pristine, and then try to keep that way. Store it nicely, keep it that way over time. And like him, I mean, I fall in the same category as him. I like using these firearms. I like enjoying them at the range. I like sharing the history with people, and I like sharing the firearms themselves with friends. And I'll take friends to the range, and they'll fire for the first time a piece of history. So necessarily, I collect anything from bubbified, shoddy, all the way up to pristine condition firearms, going back to the 1800s. So I even have some reproductions. I wouldn't say I collect reproductions, but the reproductions, like the muskets, like the Brown Bess and the Enfield P53, those are great just to relive history, take to the range and just, relive it. And then you get a kind of, feeling of what it would have been like to be behind that firearm back in the day, right? And so what Ian's saying is, if you're going to collect guns, find the best condition firearm that you can if you're going to collect.
Be aware that if you are actually doing this to try and build money, you have to be willing to sell the stuff. So there's a weird line at which this crosses from being an investor, a collector who's investing in guns, to someone who's actually a dealer who has turned this into a business of buying low and selling high. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no intimation that there's anything wrong with that. I have lots of friends who are gun dealers, and they do a valuable service in making things more readily available for other people to find and buy. Instead of you having to go to 1,000 gun shows and talk to 1,000 people walking in the door looking to sell what might be a cool gun or might be a really boring gun, dealers do all that work for you. They of course then add their work, their effort to the price, sell the thing higher, but it means you don't have to spend the time looking for it. Anyway, but if you turn this into a business, then you're not so much making money by investing in guns. You're making money transactionally by finding low, selling high. So that's a little bit different. If you just buy and never sell, you're a collector. You're not really an investor because, well, it may be a great investment for your survivors if, when you keel over dead someday. But if you're not actually selling it yourself, are you really in this as an investment, or are you in it as a collectible? And I think there's a lot to be said for buying guns. You don't want to pay more than, way more than they're worth. But the idea that I'm buying it because I'm interested in it, not because I expect it to go up in value, I think that's a very worthy thing. That's what I tend to do. I don't look at my own personal collection as something that is going up in value, and that's a great thing because now it's worth more, because I don't plan to sell it. I really don't want to get rid of it. So I'm not that concerned with what the day-to-day price of something is, beyond, of course, the price is going up and it being really hard to buy a lot of stuff anymore. Anyway.
So yeah, he's saying if you're going to be an investor in these guns, you gotta eventually sell them. So you have to think about you have to plan it out if you're going to be a gun investor, if you're going to use guns as an investment, you know, I'm going to buy low at this point in time, and in 5 to 10 years, I want to sell them, or I want to sell some of them, or over a few years, I'll sell a few off, and I'll, use the money for something else, So like what you were saying, it's a good store of value. So you can enjoy them while you're storing value, and then maybe sell them later, and hopefully you didn't lose money to buy something else. So let's say you wanted to buy, you wanted to put money down on a house. So you bought the guns just so that you didn't have money sitting in the bank, and you could eventually, you could also sell them later on, enjoy them and sell them later on while enjoying your hobby you're passionate about, and it was worth it. Like I sold these guns off, and you would have to go to a business, so like maybe an online dealer, a local gun shop, consign them, go to maybe sell them on arms list. You spend the time to sell them. Gun broker. So like you would spend the time, you would go to the gun shows, you would spend the time to sell them off, or as opposed to paying a little bit of a fee to have some gun shop consign them. So, but yeah, so, it depends what your plan is. What is your goal? And if you're a collector, then you plan on collecting them and passing them down, or curate them, or maybe hold them for a period of time, donate them to a museum, or maybe start your own museum and show off your collection, and then turn that into a business. And that would be another way to invest in guns. You're using the guns as an investment tool. You're using other collectibles. You set up your own museum to bring in people that to see these relics that they don't really ever get a chance to see, or and learn history they've never really dove into before. So another food for thought.
One of the other things to keep in mind if you're trying to invest in firearms is stuff does go down. You can never necessarily predict what's going to go up and go down. There was a time, for example, after the Great Recession, machine gun prices went down and stayed down for a while, because there were a lot of people who had been spending a lot of discretionary income in the luxury goods market, like machine guns in the United States. And after the Great Recession, they had a lot less money to play with. They stopped spending it in machine guns, and the prices went down. It happens. Machine gun prices are something that people tend to just assume are constantly and always and inevitably rising. The rising cost of ammunition, the general lack of surplus ammunition today has very much reduced the value, the prices of belt-fed, heavy, water-cooled machine guns. They used to be a gun that people really liked to be able to buy to take out and just blast thousands and thousands of rounds a day recreationally. And you could do that when ammo was, say, 2 cents a round. Well, now ammo's like 30, 40, 50, 60 cents a round. There's a lot less of that machine gun shooting going on, and that has directly impacted the prices of those guns. Vickers guns, Maxim guns, they're not worth, like if you bought into those at the height of the market, you're going to lose money if you try and sell them today, which a lot of people think is impossible in the machine gun market. And yet, it can absolutely happen. You need to be careful and understand what it is that you're buying. And I guess one final last.
So yeah, what he talks about here is, the fluctuations in the market. You have ammo prices, gun prices, all fluctuating. Surplus ammo was cheap, and now it's expensive. But just like stock market investing too. Okay, so like the market and the economic situations and all that can dictate the value of the certain businesses that are within the stock market. So you want to buy low and sell high. So you want to just buy low, and then eventually, hopefully it grows. Just like any investment, sell it at a higher price. I want to put a link in the description. I do have a book recommendation if you want to get started in the stock market. This is the way I learned. The book's called The Warren Buffett Way, and I've linked that in the description, so go check it out.
Last suggestion for people would be commemorative guns. Don't buy commemorative guns. Don't ever buy commemorative guns. the Winchester 94s and the 1911s
Yeah,
and
I've seen a bunch
the
of those.
various battle commemoratives and the various historical figure commemoratives. That is like buying the collectible china on the Home Shopping Network. Nobody ever is going to pay more for that than you pay for it yourself when it's brand new. Trust me, if you take that to a gun store to try and sell it, the dealers are laughing at you the moment that you're not looking anymore because, well, or cringing. They're sad for you probably, because that stuff never ever goes up in value. Nobody ever wants it. Nobody cares. So if you want to invest in guns, know your subject matter, look for high quality examples, and don't fool yourself that if you don't sell it, you're not actually really investing, you're just collecting, and that's a great thing too. Anyway.
So yeah, those commemorative guns, yeah, I've seen quite a few of those. They sit on the shelf for a very long time. They don't really move. Every so often they do move. So like during the presidential election, you might have had some Trump guns out there. The presidential gun, a Ruger or something, a Ruger 1022. And I was like, who buys that? But people buy them. So I would say that they have a limited niche, like a very small niche. But most people don't really see those as collectibles. They kind of just like, oh, that's a commemorative. I don't really want to shoot that. I don't really want to. I'm not gonna take that hunting. It's just a safe queen. And then even then, when they go to sell it years later, they realize, hey, this is a really hard gun to sell because not everybody else is not really interested in it either. So there's not a lot of other people interested in it as well. So, but yeah, I think there's probably just a small niche for like the commemorative stuff. And so it'd be hard pressed to have one that shoots up in value dramatically over time. You're better off just buying, like what he said before, buying the collectible a collectible firearm that's a little older, but in very pristine condition, and then taking care of that and curating that.
Hopefully this has been a bit interesting for you guys. Thanks for watching.
All right, so that was Ian at Forgotten Weapons, and that's what he had to say. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more videos where we talk about investments and guns, let me know that as well. Also, be sure to share this video with your compadres, and also check us out on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to learn history and curate history. Make it a great day.